Welcome to White Widow Sports, your front row seat to all things sports. Whether it's the biggest plays, the hottest takes, or the stories behind the stats, we've got you covered. From the plays, athletes, fantasy football, or just random sports, we're breaking it all down with passion, precision, and plenty of debate. So lace up, grab your gear, and let's get into it.
Welcome, everybody. This is White Widow Sports, a brand new sports podcast. We're going to be covering a lot of football. We're going to be talking about baseball, basketball, anything relevant in the world of sports. You can catch it here. We appreciate you tuning in. We want you to kind of give us a chance to be something that you add into your podcast array of things that you listen to. If you like what you hear today, please don't be afraid to drop us a like, subscribe to our channel. We're going to have a lot more coming. My name is Brad. I am a big time football fan, long time sports fan. I just want to welcome you guys in, introduce you to Brian and Chris. Brian is my brother. Chris is somebody that I went to school with. We graduated from the same college, and we just kind of wanted to get together and talk about sports and give you that atmosphere of guys sitting around in a living room talking about what's going on in sports, just like you would with your friends. We hope that it's something that you enjoy listening to. But Brian, go ahead and tell us a little bit about you.
I've been into sports. I play a lot of golf, watch a lot of football, played way back in the day. So that's pretty much it. What about you, Chris?
Oh, let's see. I'm a college football addict. I have no intentions of going to rehab. I'm just going to ride it till I die. I worked in the sports media field as an athletics communication director and assistant and all those sorts of things. I've been all over the country doing sports information type stuff. And, now I'm here just ready to talk.
Yeah, so we've got a lot that's going on right now. We've got football is obviously the main thing as it's getting closer and closer to championships. As we're recording this right now, this is Saturday, January 18th. We've already had one of the divisional games played in the NFL. We've got another one that's going on right now as we speak. Two more coming tomorrow. And then Monday, we've got the college football championship. We're going to be talking about all of that tonight. So I guess we're going to start off with the divisional game that's already happened. We saw Kansas City and the referees beat the Houston Texans by a score of 23-14. It's really hard when you see a statistic. I mean, it's bad enough when they say Patrick Mahomes is 6-0 in divisional games. That's already kind of demoralizing. But then when you say when this one guy is refereeing Chiefs games, the Chiefs are 7-0, kind of hard to make you feel like the deck's not stacked against you a little bit.
Yeah, I think there's been a bunch of people that have commented, and there's a ton of videos on TikTok, which yes, we're kind of hoping stays around. We'll see how that vote goes, but I've seen a ton of stuff out there on the internet. As far as the refs, I actually think there's been a couple of funny commercials about it as well. That's been done. Uh, yeah, I mean, they say any given Sunday, and that's why you play the game. But one thing you can't do is beat the refs.
Yeah, I got the chance to watch that game earlier, the Kansas City Houston game. What really impressed me was the Kansas City defense. I expected to see a bit more of an offensive game, but the Kansas City defense, if I'm not mistaken, had 8 or 9 sacks, which is amazing. Houston could not hold up the defensive line coming at them. Stroud had to run for his life, which did help out a bit a few times, but Kansas City's defense really impressed me, and I just think going forward they're gonna have a bit more of a challenge, and I just don't think Houston was up to it in this one.
Well, let me
Yeah,
let
and I
me ask
think
let me ask you something, Chris.
Yeah.
I've kind of seen it all year with Texas and their him running for his life. You think it's a O line problem on Texas, or Kansas City just played that good on defense?
think it might have been more on Texas, but I'm not sure how many games of both teams I've seen. I go all over the place watching it when I'm working out or something. But I don't know that you sit here and you're usually like Kansas City's defensive line is just the best in the world. I think it's something that's happened to Houston quite a bit, but they can make up for it in a lot of cases. And this they just couldn't this time in the big stage. Brad, am I wrong on that?
Well, I mean, I think with a lot of teams, you kind of typecast them as they do this very well. They do this very well. Everybody that knows Flores for the Vikings, he is known as being one of the best defensive coordinators for dialing up blitzes. And you always see that in the stat column. He always pressures quarterbacks, especially at very opportune times. It's something that you have to prepare for. When people go against Flores, they are bringing in heavier packages. They're bringing in extra tight ends and fullbacks and things of that nature. And similarly, the way that Bill Belichick was known for scheming away your top weapon, and it didn't matter if that was a receiver, a tight end, or running back, he was always going to say, I'm going to shoot this person out of the game plan, and you're going to have to beat us with everybody else. When you look at the defensive coordinator for the Chiefs, Steve Spagnuolo, he is actually very I guess, flexible in that way. He does not just have one game plan where he says, I'm a blitz heavy defensive coordinator. He is going to look at what you are susceptible to, and he's going to dial that up specifically. And so the Chiefs weren't somebody that led the league in sacks. In fact, I think it was the Texans defense that led the league in sacks this season. I might be wrong on that, but 8 sacks in a playoff game. I think the record is 9. And so 8 sacks in a playoff game against a pretty mobile quarterback in CJ Stroud is just a testament to how Spagnuolo was able to create that pressure. You know, with Karlaftis, I think he had 3 of those sacks on his own. I mean, he just had a great game.
Yeah, and with Texas, the big thing I saw, I watched the Texas and Chargers game, and that was actually one of my big surprises out of the wild card games last weekend was the Texas winning. I was very shocked at how well they played offense and defense. So I actually had that start on my notes was because it was a really good game, and and I really thought going into this week that they were going to give Kansas City a good run for their money, but it just wasn't there, wasn't in the cards.
I mean, I think looking between the conferences, you could almost pick out a team that doesn't belong between the sets of 4 that are at this stage right now.
Hmm.
And to me, Houston was that weak link in the AFC. When you have Kansas City, when you have Buffalo, and then when you have Baltimore, those 3 teams are the upper echelon. And then you look at Houston. Houston's had a great year. They had a great year last year with Stroud as a rookie and kind of solidified themselves as a contending team, but I didn't feel like they were there. Maybe if you didn't see the season-ending injuries to Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell, they'd be looked at as more formidable. But when they're rolling out John Mechie and Xavier Hutchinson as part of their starting receiver sets, I know they got Robert Woods back, but I don't even know if he had a catch today. It just did not seem like they had the firepower to stay with the Chiefs, who didn't even have a monster game of their own. In fact, the Houston defense did a better job, I believe, than the Houston offense did in this game. They held Kansas City to field goals when they needed to, especially early on. The very first kickoff return was, I think, 65 or 67 yards. And the person who made the tackle for Houston threw his helmet and pushed his special teams coach the very first play of the game. I think Kansas City got the ball on the 13-yard line to start the game, and they held them to -1 yard on those 3 plays and forced a field goal. I mean, just to be put in that kind of a position to start the game and to not give up anything but a field goal, I thought was great.
Do you have any more surprise for Brad from last week in the wild card games? Anything that stood out to you?
Well, I mean, I think for the most part, the teams that we thought were going to win did win. The game that I thought was going to be closer was the Chargers-Texans game. I thought the Chargers and their brand of football that they play, they have a lot of long, sustained drives. They play good defense. They have a pretty decent running game. I thought that they were at least going to keep it closer than they did. But I think everybody's big surprise was how much of the Rams we saw in a dominating fashion over Minnesota. I mean, I actually had Minnesota picked to win that game. And if you told me that one of those two teams was going to tie the playoff record for 9 sacks in a game, I would have picked the Vikings, not the Rams.
Oh,
I mean, they don't even have Aaron Donald anymore. And I thought that was kind of their chief defensive player. That was the face of their defense. And now we're seeing what that defense can do even without him.
Oh, I agree totally. Um, and I kind of like the Washington Buccaneers game, even though the NFC South, if you really want to get it, that's a pitiful little conference. And I'm a huge Falcons fan. Obviously Brad is. He's wearing. He's geared up in Falcons, but it's just that. Yeah. I just I don't know. To me, that was one of the better games. Now, do I think the Commanders get killed? Probably. I believe they're playing the Ravens this week, and
No. Detroit, they're playing the Lions.
that's even worse. So I just don't. I don't know. I don't see them. I've liked the Commanders this year. I had a couple of their players on my fantasy team this year, so I really kept up with that program uh, more so than I did in years past. But I just, you know, I don't think they move past this week. To be honest.
And I was out of town, so I didn't actually see that slate of games. But I do want to touch on the Vikings Rams. Big disappointment for the Vikings. I think we can all agree. If someone had told you they made a run and they were in the Super Bowl and even won it, then you might have said that's possible. But 14-3, and you know, it's all over for nothing. I guess I feel like the Vikings have been saying this for 60 years. Um, yeah, I think that's one of the most disappointing that I saw from this round, and hopefully for the fan base's sake, there's not too many more heartbreak uh, situations in the next.
I mean, the Vikings only lost to two teams in the NFL this year. They were the Rams and the Lions, and they lost to both of those teams twice. And I think when you saw what happened to Minnesota in that Week 18 game against the Detroit Lions, I mean, I really think they got humbled to the point of being broken because they looked like they weren't ready to play playoff football against the Rams. And you can say that the Rams played really inspired football because they were representing the Los Angeles community with the wildfires and everything that's kind of devastating that region. But they were also having to be transported to Arizona to play in a stadium that wasn't theirs, with locker rooms that wasn't there, practice facilities that weren't there. I mean, they were taken out of their element. That was not a true home game. And it seemed like Minnesota just lost all momentum with the loss that they took Week 18 to Detroit.
Do you think we see a different outcome had it stayed where it was supposed to be?
I think if the Fires weren't, I mean, because obviously it was an away game either way for Minnesota. They were going to have to travel either way. I think if in a perfect world where people aren't losing their homes and everything like that, you didn't have these fires to contend with. Maybe the Rams aren't coming out playing. I mean, this is almost like the Saints coming out after Katrina. Was anybody going to beat them that first night when they came back after Katrina? Absolutely not. You can't tell me they weren't going to get everything that they wanted that night. But I think, like I said, I think this was just a mental thing. You see, sometimes teams don't show up the way that you expect them to, and I think that was the case for Minnesota. I don't want to put it all on the Rams and give them. I mean, they deserve a lot of credit, but I almost think that it was more so Minnesota didn't play the way that we think they should, just as much, if not more, than the Rams played better than we thought they would.
So what do you think? They play the Eagles this week. What do you think? You think okay, the Fires? I haven't really heard. Are they fully contained now, or
No,
Oh,
no.
okay? So do you think that's does that feel good or not feel good, but that momentum swing for the Rams? Does that continue on with the Eagles, or because I believe Dean got hurt for the Eagles, and he's kind of done for the year. So, does with them missing that piece at linebacker, does obviously that's going to hurt any team at this late of in the season. Does that Ram team come in and dominate the Eagles this week?
I don't think so at all. I certainly wouldn't use the term dominate. Now, obviously, like you said, any given Sunday we could see that happen. That's why they play the games. Would I be betting on that or even guessing that it would happen? Absolutely not. If I were to list the top 5 players on Philadelphia's defense, Nakobe Dean wouldn't make the list. They've still got a lot of talent on that defense.
Oh
I'm not
yeah.
worried about Dean not being there. I think Philadelphia's offense being intact is a much bigger thing to contend with because if you've got a game that's going so well for Philadelphia that their top receiver is sitting on the sideline reading a book because he's that unbothered by what's going on the field, kind of tells you where Philadelphia is right now. If you told me that Jalen Hurts was missing the game or Saquon Barkley was missing the game, okay, I might be a little bit more concerned. The fact that you've got those two guys, Dallas Goedert, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, I think that Philadelphia is going to go out there and do what they always do this time around. They're going to take care of business. That's a well-prepared football team.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Eagles are way better. If the Rams have any emotional energy that they're bringing into it, or if that's what they brought into the last one, I don't think that'll be enough to overcome the Eagles. Also, it's in Philly. Those fans are rowdy. They often get a bad rap for it, even. But you can't deny that it's just gonna be a very tough atmosphere. I see right here we have a 6.5 spread. I'll take the over on that easy. I'll take even 2 touchdowns maybe. Can't go too far. Rams still belong there. They still play good football, but I've got the Eagles easy in that one.
Well, I mean, just like we were talking about the emotional response in the wild card game, did they, proverbially speaking, of course, blow their load on the Minnesota game? Did they come out, get that emotionally charged win for their game, and now they might come out and look a little bit flat against a better team?
I think so.
Yeah, but the Eagles were on a bye last week, correct? Did they play?
No,
Can't remember.
no. Detroit was the 1 seed.
Okay,
Philadelphia played Green Bay and won 22-10.
that's right. That's right. That was right. Okay, so they're not going to be dealing with like what we saw in the college playoffs, where the teams basically that had the bye kind of just choked on the biscuit on that day. Um,
And that
the
was the game that Nakobe Dean got hurt in, was last week's game against Green Bay.
that you're right. You're right. You're right. All right. So I guess everybody's kind of must watch this week is going to be the Ravens Bills. What are y'all thinking about that?
Expect it to be a whole lot of fun. A whole lot of fun. As we spoke before, off camera, or off this camera, it may be out there in the archives somewhere. We'll see. I expect the Bills and maybe want the Bills to win the Super Bowl, and I'm gonna stick with that. I think that Josh Allen is ready to go. He's getting a Super Bowl eventually. I don't know if you guys want to disagree with me on that here in a moment, but he's getting a Super Bowl eventually. And I say, why not now? And no, it's not just because I happen to work at the University of Wyoming at the same time he was there. Um, in fact, I didn't believe in him while he was there because it was Wyoming. They weren't playing actually great football at the time. It's just this fan base, went to 4 straight Super Bowls. They lost. They're due. I think it's coming. I know there's a few teams you could say that about. The Vikings were one of them. So, oh well. And then the Ravens are just always fun to watch. I'm not saying the Bills are going out and winning this one like it's their destiny. I'm saying it'll be fun to watch, and I think the Bills pull out a close one.
I mean, I think this is kind of the fun time because say what you want about Saquon Barkley. This is kind of a two-dog race when you look at the MVP in the NFL this year. It's either Josh Allen or it's Lamar Jackson. The fact that you get to see them go head-to-head in this, I'm not saying whoever wins or whoever has the better game is a shoe-in for MVP, but I think that it is a great stage to be set for them to battle it out. They both play almost similar brands of football. They're not afraid to use their legs when they need to. When you look at rushing touchdowns by quarterback, not involving a tush push, I think that they are two of the most dynamic players at the position, and they can kill you throwing, they can kill you running. It should be great to see them put their teams on their back. But the only problem with that is there's an X factor in this game that you wouldn't have seen in years past, and that's Derrick Henry. So even if Lamar Jackson comes out and does not have his best game, and you say, "Oh, we've got him contained," you're not going to be able to contain Derrick Henry the same way. You can only put so much of your focus on one or the other, and you're not going to be able to stop them both. I don't think. Now, I am a longtime Falcons fan. You see this 45 on my jersey. You can actually see the Reebok logo on here. It's been a long time since Reebok had the license to make NFL jerseys. This is TJ Duckett, throwback to the Michael Vick days. I mean, this is my original favorite player was TJ Duckett. And so, as much as I am a Falcons fan, my favorite player in the league is Lamar Jackson. Now, I think we can all agree on this. Maybe we're just drinking that South Georgia haterade. I don't know. I think we all want the same thing, and that's for a team other than the Kansas City Chiefs to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. If I get Rams Lions, if I get Bills Commanders, at this point, I do not care. I just don't want the Chiefs in there. And I'm sorry, I don't care about the three-peat. I don't want to see it. If I was personally picking a team that I want to win, it's going to be the Ravens because I want that success for Lamar Jackson. I want him to get his third MVP. I want him to go to a Super Bowl. I want him to win a Super Bowl the same way that Chris wants Josh Allen to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, if any of those teams, the person that I want to win this game is the team that's going to beat the Chiefs in the next round. Put it that way.
Now, you brought it up a little bit. Who do you think has the better game, Barkley or Henry?
Well, I mean, two different teams or two different games, obviously.
Yeah.
Barkley's going against the Rams, and I could see. I mean, both guys have been killing it this year. I mean, it's hard to root against Barkley right now after seeing what he has done this year. He almost broke the rushing record. If they had actually needed to play in that final week of the season, I think he would have taken it with ease. But Derrick Henry right now, I mean, there's just so much that's opened up for him by the threat of Lamar Jackson rushing that it's almost like letting the defense pick your poison. One of those two guys between Lamar and Derrick Henry, they're going to eat. And so you're either going to see Derrick Henry with one of his 70, 80-yard long runs, or you're going to see Lamar Jackson run it 15 times in a game. But it all depends on who you scheme away.
Yep.
Or attempt to.
Mm-hmm.
I guess what I was kind of getting at more, and I asked it in a roundabout way about asking about the running backs, but who do you think has the better defense? Is the Bills defense going to step up and stop the Ravens, or is the who are they playing?
Rams.
Talking
about the Rams and Eagles?
Yeah, the Rams going to step up and stop Barkley.
I don't see that one.
I don't either. I don't see the Rams stopping him at all.
To answer your question, I think it's more likely that the Bills will shut down Henry. And I don't know what the word shut down in this case means or looks like. I just think that Barkley might have the better opportunity to put up a big game in the playoffs against the Rams. It's my thought, at least.
Yeah, I don't think you shut down either one of them. I mean, it's just one is super elusive and just is so dynamic. The other one is a truck. So I don't know that you shut down either. I think Brad is right with you've got Lamar Jackson there. That it's like, which one do you go after?
Yeah.
It's you pick your poison. Where Barkley, I don't know that you. I mean, you obviously have that, but I think the Rams. I don't think their defense is ready for the Eagles' offense. I think it's Barkley would. in my opinion, Barkley has the more explosive game and kind of shows out a
Well, I mean,
little bit more.
I think this is the best way to think about it is game plan. When you look at the Eagles, Saquon Barkley has been the game plan. AJ Brown is
Yep.
going to have big weeks. Devontae Smith is going to have big weeks. But Jalen Hurts has gotten hobbled a couple of times.
Yeah.
He's actually just coming off of an injury where he returned last week after not playing a couple weeks before. And so I think Saquon Barkley has been that consistent and steady producer for the Eagles, and I don't think that's going to change. I don't think you can take him out. He's just, like you said, he's too dynamic. He's having too great of a year. You're not going to take him out. Whereas when you look at Baltimore, they have so many different ways that they can beat you that a lot of it is we're going to beat you with Derrick Henry or we're going to beat you with Lamar Jackson. We're going to make you pick between one or the other. And so you've got Baltimore's offensive scheme of what they're trying to do versus the Bills' defense and what they're trying to take away. Those choices are going to determine who has the bigger game, I think, on the Baltimore side of things. Whereas I think if you were going to bet who has the better game, you almost have to give it to Saquon because he has been the game plan for Philadelphia all year. You don't run for 2,000 yards if you're not the guy.
Mhm.
So I know we haven't talked about it a whole lot. What do y'all have on the Commanders Lions game? Is it either if it is it one of those that okay, I just flip over when I'm bored, or is it okay, I got to sit down and watch this?
Well, if we weren't recording, I suppose I'd be watching it. And as of this moment, if my browser is right, it's 10-7, a great game. Commanders actually leading. I would have thought the Lions. I kind of feel the same way about them as the Bills. I feel like it could be their time. And it looks like it may be getting close to halftime, and it could go either way. So that does look like a very fun game. And sure, by the time this is posted, we'll know if it was.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I think there's a lot of really good players in this. Jaden Daniels to have the season that he's had as a rookie. I mean, a lot of people kind of viewed him the same way that they viewed Lamar Jackson coming out of the league or coming into the league from college. They said, hey, he's a dynamic rushing threat, but we don't know if he's ready to throw at an NFL level. And Lamar Jackson didn't even really play until the tail end of his rookie season because he was behind Joe Flacco. He came in right there at the end of the year, took over the following year, and just broke the league with his ability. But I think Jaden Daniels coming out with Dan Quinn as a head coach, his first year as a head coach since leaving the defensive coordinator position at Dallas. You have Cliff Kingsbury, who was known for his time with Kyler Murray in Arizona, now helming this offense. He has come in. He's had incredible efficiency as a passer. He's taken shots. He's been safe. He's not turned the ball over a lot. And yes, he's been a very productive runner as well. I mean, I think we're seeing sky's the limit for that kid, but you're running into an absolute buzzsaw when you go against Detroit. I don't even think Commanders fans picked Washington to beat Detroit in this game. And if Detroit does not find a way to win this game like they've won all year long, that would be the biggest shock to me, even more so than any other result we've had so far this year.
Sure.
I mean, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jahmyr Gibbs, Sam Laporta, Jared Goff. I mean, that offense is just, it clicks every single week. They don't really have bad weeks at all. They seem to be playing really, really inspired football right now. Their head coach, Dan Campbell, is somebody that can really get his team invested. They always show up to play. And I think that you're going to see that week in and week out. Detroit also wants a Super Bowl. They have been a basement team in their division for a long time. And now they've started to be not only competitive, but downright dominant at times. And so I don't see how they don't at least represent the NFC championship game for their division at the very least. As much as I would love for the Commanders to keep the Cinderella story going, I don't see them winning this game.
All right. Speaking of Cinderella stories, I guess it's not really. Let's. We got one more college football game. I'm a college football junkie, so I don't know, Chris. What's your pick? Notre Dame, Ohio State.
Oh, my pick is Ohio State easily, because they've not even had a close game up until this last one, and even then, as we've talked about before, you know, they were given a good game, but that just wasn't even their best. And I think I think you're going to see their best, and I think this could be a little embarrassing. I'm not saying TCU Georgia embarrassing, but I could. It wouldn't shock me if it was 42 to 14 or something like that. And I know Notre Dame's a good team. Obviously, they've earned their way into this and everything, but I just can't see them getting enough breaks to even make it that competitive.
I mean, I know it's episode one, but to peel the curtain back for you guys just a little bit, this is actually our third time attempting to record this podcast over the last few weeks. We have had every conceivable obstacle stand in our way that has prevented us from getting content out. We are now reviewing games that we had previewed on other attempts to record this.
Yeah.
So I think all along, I mean, even from our very first recording, we have had Ohio State winning this thing. We said back when they were playing against Oregon, whoever wins this game out of Oregon and Ohio State, they should be viewed as the favorites to win the playoff, the entire thing. And here they are going against Notre Dame, who I didn't even think was going to get past Penn State. I think Penn State would have
Crazy.
given a better game to Ohio State than what Notre Dame will. So obviously, I've got Ohio State winning the national championship. And if I was going to throw a score out, I've got 34-17.
Uh, I think it's going to be a slaughter. I think I'm like Chris. If Ohio State comes out and plays the football that they can play, it's just going to be ugly, and probably get turned off at halftime. Because I'm not, obviously being from down south, I love UGA. I loved them back when they weren't so hot. So it's not a let me jump on the bandwagon. I've been a Georgia fan since I was probably 5. So I do remember the Herschel Walker days, and then I remember them Mark Rick days where you went kind of 500 and that's supposed to be good enough. I got in a bowl game. So um, to see Georgia doing well over the past few years, I've been super happy. I hate it that they're not there, but I think Ohio State's just going to slaughter Notre Dame. I don't think I think it's just is. Hopefully I'm wrong and it's a really good football game, and Notre Dame comes out playing trick plays and it's just like, wow, where'd that come from? Um, but I just think it's going to be a slaughter. I don't even know that I can put a score on it. I'm thinking I think Notre Dame lucks up and gets 7 points, but really the sky's the limit for Ohio State. I think they're 42 plus in this one. So it's just gonna be something.
Now,
Um,
correct me if I'm wrong here, but because it's been a little while, like you said, we've recorded a few times, we've unrecorded, we've so it's been a minute. But in several of the Notre Dame games I saw wide open receivers, and Penn State and Georgia were just not able to get the ball there. Ohio State is going to get the ball there.
oh
Ohio
yeah,
State got the ball there when their guys were seemingly covered, especially against Oregon. Yeah, and like you said, and that's just gonna. I don't see any way it doesn't lead to just a straight up blowout.
yep,
Well, I mean, you just run through the names. You've got Will Howard was transferred in to Ohio State this year to replace Kyle McCord for a reason, and that was to facilitate this offense. Travion Henderson, a lot of people thought was going to the draft last year. He comes back. He is joined in the backfield by Quinshawn Judkins, who was a star running back at Ole Miss. He transferred to this team for a reason. Obviously, losing Marvin Harrison Jr., that was a big loss to this receiving group, or so you thought. And not only does Emeka Egbuka come back for one more year, when a lot of people thought he also was going to the draft, he is now joined by 18-year-old phenom Jeremiah Smith, who I don't know if you guys have seen this picture. They were triple covering Jeremiah Smith against Texas last round. I mean, he at one point in time, I think he had one catch for 3 yards, and that was in the second half. And they were committing multiple resources to shutting him down, and they're saying we're not going to let this freshman beat us. And for him to come in at 18 years old and completely take over the landscape of college football the way that he has just shows a new star is already in our presence. But then Carnell Tate has had big games when they've tried to take him away. G. Scott Jr., their tight end, has had some big games. He's steady anyway. And so I don't think that this is a team that you can take one guy away and say, we're going to stop this offense. They've got too many weapons. And it's funny that you mentioned Mark Richt at UGA because that was actually the coach that I compared Ryan Day's situation to at the beginning of the season. He has not been beating Michigan. He's not been putting those top 3, top 5 recruiting classes to good use because he's got no hardware to show for it. And I mean, this is going to be Ohio State's first national championship since 2014. You've got a 10-year gap of no championships that you've got to explain if you're Ryan Day. And I said, you can only have so many top recruiting classes and so many 10-win seasons and not win a championship before that seat gets a little too hot. And for him to come in and not only make this national championship, but being viewed as the favorite to win it, I think it validates him and makes sure that he keeps his job. I don't see how Notre Dame can stay with them with all the weapons that we've discussed and everything like that. Would a blowout surprise me? No. But I mean, it's one of those games where I think Ohio State could jump all over Notre Dame and then use those two talented running backs to try to eat clock in the second half and really just try to control tempo. And I can see Notre Dame coming in and scoring once or twice late. I mean, if they go, like I said, 34-17, if it was 34-3, and then Notre Dame scores a couple touchdowns late after the dogs have been called off, that wouldn't surprise me either.
I still think he puts an exclamation point on this. With them not having those championships, I think he's going. It'll be fourth quarter, if at all, that he calls the dogs out and tries to, just run clock. I don't see him doing that. I think he's gonna, he's gonna be like, yeah, I'm the best, and this is why I'm the best. You're gonna want to keep me around for, no matter whether I lose to Michigan or not. You're gonna want to keep me around. So, I think he actually puts an exclamation point on the season because there was talks of, hey, if he doesn't get past Oregon or he doesn't make it past the first round, he's gone because he hasn't, because he lost to Michigan and because he lost to, he hasn't really won anything. So I really think he's gonna just throw all his weapons at this Notre Dame team, and he's gonna say, "Can Notre Dame keep up with us?"
I mean, Chris, you're the college football historian kind of amongst us.
Yeah.
If you were ranking college football rivalries, where would you put Ohio State, Michigan in that? And the reason why I kind of pose that question to you that way is because me being a Falcons fan, and I'm a lot more, of course, I love college football, but I am much more NFL driven. It literally pains me inside to see the Saints do anything noteworthy or successful. To have Michigan have the season that they had last year and win that national championship despite all the controversy that surrounded that program, I mean, it just has to kill Ohio State. They have to win this national championship with as much talent as they're about to send to the NFL draft. I mean, just for saving face of the program, they've got to come out and do something big this year to make up for what we saw from Michigan last year.
Yeah. So where would I rank it? If I was putting my own personal feelings into it, that might be different. But I think you're asking from a realistic, factual, um, historical standpoint. If you're asking it from that, it's probably in the top 5. So I do think that's a great story, and I do think there's going to be a lot of disappointed Michigan fans. Maybe not that disappointed because from what I've seen, they've got a great recruiting class coming in. I don't think they're going. What did they go 7-5 or 8-5 after they roll one or whatever? I don't think Michigan's gone. I think they're in a transition period, and having Ohio State win a national championship here is just gonna keep it going, keep it very interesting. And Ohio State's also probably not going anywhere with this. I think you're not even going to have to talk about Ryan Day anymore being a coach that can't get it done because, as we and most of the nation, 8.5 point favorites, think he's about to get it done. And that's only gonna fuel the fire and keep it going.
What did y'all think about the playoffs? I know we've mentioned several teams. What did y'all think about the whole playoff? The 12 team. Did they get it right? Did they get it wrong? I personally, I'm a fan of it. I like it, even though, yeah, my team got beat, and I do think that bye week, it's actually like a bye month, kind of hurt all four of those teams. You did not see the best football played. Um, with that, other than Texas played a pretty good game. I will give them that. But it's what would you change if anything?
I think they got it right. I think there's some critics out there who'll say, well, we didn't get the drama we wanted like we get in basketball. Even now, I'm not saying what 8 and 7 are obviously going against each other. So you could say that's drama, but like we know these two teams are good. A lot of people were like, what's Arizona State going to do? What's Boise State going to do? Well, they didn't do well, I should back up. Boise State didn't do all that great. Arizona State didn't do good till the end. But I think that it's important to give those teams their opportunities. And I think that you will see some drama eventually. You just didn't see a lot of it this year. And I think you're going to see wild, crazy games moving forward. And I don't think year one should be a reflection or fuel to the fire of the critics.
Well, I mean, I think if you look at this year specifically, the microcosm of it is you saw your top four teams lose. You also saw that last group of four lose. It is that middle group of four that got through to that round of semifinals. And so if you said, oh, well, only the top four teams really are contention for championships, well, that wasn't the case this year because you see that middle group in there. Well, do you cut it off at 8? No, because then you've got those guys at 9 and 10. And you're saying, man, this is a top 10 team that by some circumstance they didn't get in. Why can't we give them a shot at it? So I do think they got it right with the 12 teams. I like the format. I like the excitement that you get from it. And I think if you look at it outside of just this year and moving forward, what you're going to see is I think you're going to see recruiting and NIL and everything like that play an even bigger role because now you're going to see teams make a run saying all we've got to do is be a top 12 team. All we've got to do is make the playoffs and we've got a shot because we saw those top four seeds with their first round bye all get beat out. None of them are represented still going into the national championship. And so if you say, hey, if I go to this team and I make a couple $1,000,000 and I help them get to the playoffs, who knows? I could become a national champion. It's not like when you only had two teams with the BCS or four teams with the initial playoff format. There are now more teams that are able to make a run towards that championship. And I think that's just going to be better for football because we're going to see that talent spread out across more teams because everybody's going to want their shot.
But with us coming up on the draft in a couple of months, do you think it affects the NFL? Being an NFL guy, do you think the whole 12 man, maybe you see something that you might not have seen before? I mean, I know
Well,
NFL scouts, their dream's always gonna rise to the top. It don't matter if you're going to a JUCO school or a Division 3 school or something. If you are an NFL caliber player, NFL scouts are gonna find you for sure. But do you think, does it, as far as being a fan favorite, being a UGA guy, I'm a Brock Bowers super fan, and with him doing so good in the NFL this year, I have pulled for him because I followed him from college because he was so good in college. Uh, I didn't know much about I believe his name's Scattaboo out of Arizona State. I didn't know much about him until I saw that team play, and then I'm like, wow, I really like this running back. He's gritty. He's a football guy. You want to name, or if you want a dictionary definition of a football guy, that's him. So now I'm kind of a fan of his. So I want to see what he does when he goes to the draft and follow his NFL career. Does this help with it being that 12-team playoff and kind of putting some notoriety on some teams that necessarily you wouldn't see in years past when it was the top four? Obviously the whole country knows about Ohio State. The whole country knows about UGA. The whole country knows about Bama. You know, does this bring, you know, like I said, some notoriety to the ASUs and some of the teams that us being in the South don't necessarily really look at?
Well, I mean, I think you hit on a couple of things. I mean, you guys are both UGA fans. You know that the SEC brand of football is taken very seriously. And so a lot of times, everything else is in the world of college football and maybe even other sports as well to a lesser extent, but especially when it comes to football, everything is put into the lens of level of competition. And so you look at Ashton Genty and the year that he had for Boise State. What was everybody saying? Like, oh, yeah, well, he had a 250-yard game and he had 4 touchdowns or 6 touchdowns, but who did he do it against? No, he wouldn't have done that in the SEC. And so level of competition gets called into question. So I think the first thing that you see is by having Boise State qualify for a 12-team playoff where they might have been excluded from a 4-team playoff, I think it gives them a chance to show head to head against the best teams that these guys can be for real. And so I think that you see the names like Cam Scatterbo and stuff like that kind of become almost like a household name for this level of the game because they got a chance to do it on a stage that they wouldn't have been able to other than that. The other thing I think is one thing that you've seen marred in postseason football is the opt out. Like I said, you guys both being Georgia fans, what happened last year when Georgia played Florida State? You had more opt outs from that game than any other, I think, in the history of college football. A lot of guys said, this game doesn't mean anything to me, and I'm going to the NFL, so why risk getting hurt? The game didn't mean anything to them whatsoever. Why would they risk that injury? Why would they risk their careers and their future knowing that their next step was the NFL and not that bowl game? I think by expanding to the 12-team playoff, you've got more players that are invested in the postseason. You're going to see less opt outs, and you're therefore going to get those stars that otherwise would have protected themselves. Emeka Egbuka, for example, at Ohio State, is somebody that in previous years probably would have opted out because he knew he had a good chance at being a first round draft pick that would fall to a fourth or fifth round draft pick if he tore his ACL in a bowl game. Well, now he's playing for a national championship, and they've had to do it the hard way, as hard as it's looked for Ohio State anyway. They have proven step by step that they are bought into team success, and I feel like that's something that's been missing over the last few years.
I think you answered your own question there at the very beginning of it all. I think in today's age and with media coverage, no one's going to overlook you. You're going to be found. And I think what you're touching on, does it help? And I'm not calling you casual, but I'm saying, does it help the casuals fall in love with a Cam Scatterbo? Yeah, sure. But I think that the right people had the right film and the right opinions and the right assessments of someone. So I don't think it makes a huge difference now. I think if it was 1981, it might help a whole lot. I watched a video just working out. I think it was last year, and maybe Brad has a name because he's really good at this. There was a lineman at Yale, a center, a guard, something like that. He was being hyped up, and I heard about him on YouTube just from someone talking about him. And Yale was not a good team at the time, I don't think. No more than 7 wins, maybe. And I heard about this guy just from watching YouTube. And if I heard about him just sitting there on a stationary bike, then the right people in the right situations, gathering information for the draft, they heard about him. I don't think this helps. I think this helps with stories for America's sweetheart, so to speak. And that's all you're really gaining.
Yeah, but if you look at Scatterbo, so
Mhm.
you know he wasn't a household name until that ASU game. I mean,
I heard
maybe
of
in Arizona maybe over there in the Southwest, he probably was, to a huge, I mean, like in depth stat guy. Yeah, he was probably on your board. NFL scout, probably on your board without a doubt. But for the average person like myself, that that is the first ASU game you'd ever seen. Um, does that help his contract? Does that help his agent? Hey, my guy is now a yeah, he's going to go in the first round, maybe the second round, being a running back. But does that help his money value because he does have that household name? Does have that? I guess it's not really. He's going to get what he gets from an NFL team, but does that help his brand? Does that help his? And let's say, even if he wasn't going to the NFL and he wasn't a senior, let's say he's a junior or a freshman, does that help his NIL money? Do you now have to pay him more money to keep him in your program?
I still don't think so. I think, like you said, I have heard of him. I had heard of him a good bit. I think he even finished in the Heisman voting. So a number of people heard him. Granted, I did not see a lot of Arizona State games. I did see one or two, which is more than your admittedly zero before that time. But I think that the right people have seen him and the right people know him, and I think he's going to get what's owed to him, regardless of if a casual fan knows who he is or a hardcore fan knows who he is. Brad, do you think I'm dying on a hill, or I got to stick up my ass here, or am I wrong?
Well, I mean, I think you're both right. I think in today's age, if you have tape out there, there's somebody watching it. Now I know what you're talking about with the Yale offensive lineman. You could not pay me enough to try to attempt and pronounce his name because it was not one that if you gave me 10 chances, I would be able to say right. His first name is either Kyron or Kieran. We're going to call him that. But I mean, just to take it another step forward, that's Yale. Take it another step forward. I mean, he went to the Bears, I think, maybe third round draft choice, which is great.
Okay.
But the Patriots took an offensive lineman in the first round a few years back by the name of Cole Strange, who played at the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga. If you go to UTC and get drafted in the first round by the Patriots, that's noteworthy. It does not matter what level of football you play at. If you are able to put it out there on tape, if somebody can watch you and say, this is going to help my team, you're going to get noticed because that's their jobs. That's what an NFL scouting department does. But bringing it back to the college football level, I do think that it does impact NIL in a way because you're going to take these performances, you're going to take these games and this stage, and you are using it to build a brand. And we've talked about that recently. From the time that you step foot on a college campus, you have a brand. That welcome to the NIL world that we're living in. And so now you've got players that are choosing between, do I go to the NFL or do I not stay and get a degree? They still don't care about that. Do I take this offer to play at the University of Miami for $4 million? Do I turn down an offer to go to UNC for $10 million? I mean, just there's all these offers that are being put out there that you're having to use as a decision maker of what's better for me in the long term, what's better for me in the short term. And I think bringing it back to the playoff, I think that this is that stage that leaps those decisions to be made. If Arizona State did not make the college football playoff, if Scadaboo did not have the performance that he did against Texas, would he be worth as much now without those? And I think the answer is clearly no. I think that performance really put him on the map in a way that his regular season performances didn't, because it was a playoff game, because it was Texas, and because there were so many eyes on him at that point.
But does that matter? I guess my argument still is that I forget what year he is. My guess is a senior, and he was already on his way out. And if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. But if he was, or if he is, does that matter if you're already on your way out? The right people have seen you, and you know what you're going to be worth, and they know what you're going to be worth. If maybe you're a redshirt sophomore, you could come out, and your worth is going to be really good in college because all those eyes were on you. That's a whole different story. I think if you're already on your way out, I don't think it matters as much if America falls in love with you or not. because your endorsement deals are going to come later. Michael Jordan didn't get any Nike deals immediately coming out of college. They knew he was a good player, but they didn't say, I'm going to attach my name to him immediately, give him a shoe deal and all that stuff. That will come in time.
Well, I mean, I think it's one of those where you said if you're on your way out, doesn't matter. When you look at draft stock, yes, it does, because there's a difference in pay. There's a difference in job security. There's a huge difference if you look round by round at the percentage of players that make the 53-man roster, just round by round. It is a huge discrepancy. And so a player that is taken in the third round has a huge uptick in job security just because of what's invested in them versus if they were taken in the fifth round or the sixth round. And so you become a lot more expendable if you're a late round pick. And there's a lot of different things, a lot of factors that go into your draft stock. But if you say that Scadaboo has an improved draft stock now after the game with Texas, and I think it's clear to say that he does, versus whatever their final game of the season was, then that makes it worth it. That makes it matter to somebody like him because he would, of course, much rather be viewed as a second or third round pick than a fifth round pick or sixth round pick that's struggling to make a roster. All these guys know is I have to have an opportunity in order to parlay this into monetary financial success and security. And so I think that's really the root of the answer of what you're looking at is they got to have these big time performances. They've got to have impressive film because that's what gets people looking at them. Then they've got to get invited to these combine and senior bowl games. They've got to have good performances there too. And that's what determines where they get drafted. And I hope that answers your question in the way that you're looking for. Does it matter on the way out? If you look at it as I'm putting those finishing touches, I'm polishing my resume for whatever NFL team is already looking at me, because you know that they are they looking at me as a second round pick or are they looking at me as a fifth round pick is a monumental difference at this stage of the game.
I think we had a great discussion tonight. I kind of want to leave it there with everybody. I'd like to leave something for the next episode, so to speak. So I hope you guys enjoyed watching us and being a part of our discussion and kind of what we talk about. And, we hope you join in again next time. Please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. And if you do leave a comment, we will get back to you either in a video or we'll respond back to you in the chat forum. So thank you again for watching. I'm Brian. Brad, you got anything to say as we exit?
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody again. Anybody that's sitting there watching this right now, you've made it to the end of the video. You might already be our number one fan. You might be our only fan, but that still makes you our top fan. We appreciate you. Anybody that is watching this at this point, there's going to be some obvious topics moving forward. By the next time we record, we're going to have a college football champion. We're going to have another round of NFL playoff games that are done. We're going to be previewing those and moving forward into the conference championships, the Super Bowl. But anything that you guys want to see us discuss, anything that you want our thoughts on, anything that maybe we touched on but we didn't elaborate on to your liking, let us know in the comments. Tell us what you want to hear from us. This is obviously a brand new podcast. We want to tailor it to what our audience wants to hear about. So let us know. I mean, that is your way of putting the touches on this and making it what you want to listen to. We want you to come back. Anything else from you, Chris?
Yeah, guys, just thanks for joining us and enjoying our discussion mostly about Cam Scadaboo. If you ever see this, I hope you enjoyed our discussion on you. We are obviously big fans, and we hope you have a wonderful career. But yeah, everyone else who's not Cam Scadaboo, also thanks for stopping by as well. And
I hope you have great careers also, by the way.
Yes, and I hope you guys who are not Cam Scadaboo also have great careers, whatever that may be. So yeah, thanks for stopping by.